Hello! And hello again.
All right, well, obviously you're the biggest Cowboy fan. You're probably the only Cowboy fan that I know. I hate the Cowboys personally, but as a Cowboy fan, and obviously with football coming up, what's most exciting for you?
Well, you got to look at the return of Zeke Elliott. I mean, Zeke only played 10 games last year, still had almost 1,000 yards. Best running back in the league. Brings back the whole dimension that they had the season before when they went 13-3. Takes the pressure off Dak, lets him get some time back there. They finally got rid of Dez Bryant because they didn't use him right, but
So that honestly that sparks two questions for me. For one, about Dez Bryant, because obviously you were a Dez Bryant fan at one point. So how does that decision to let him go sit with you as a fan? And then number two, I want to know what you think about Dak Prescott as a fan, because for me, I'm not a buyer. I'm so out on Prescott, it's not even funny. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I look at the conference and division he's in, and I go down the list, and there's 10 quarterbacks I'd rather have before Dak Prescott. And again, that's not to say he's a bad quarterback, but I don't see him as a, say, top 5, top 10, not even top 15 quarterback, to be completely honest. So as a fan, where does he sit for you?
I wouldn't say he's top 5 or top 10. I think he's top 15. But this kind of goes back to the discussions I always have with all y'all guys about Alex Smith. Y'all always hating on Alex Smith, but he wins a lot of games, don't he?
No, that's fair.
And Dez, I mean, I don't know. I think getting rid of Dez, it was time. This is a guy that's trying to get a 1-year contract to prove himself, but then he goes on Twitter and goes off on a bunch of his old teammates. So that tells you what he comes with, all the extra that he has.
And that's true. And I mean, I watch, and like obviously we all do, but I watch a lot of the sports talk shows. I'm probably a little bit more into it than you guys are, because I literally watch that stuff all day long. But that's something that they talk about, is production intolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So, once it outweighs, you got to let the guy go. I don't think he's going to find a decent job. I think he's going to be on a bad team, probably somewhere where a coach is going to get fired pretty soon, and it's just going to spiral out of control. I don't think Cleveland, I know that was mentioned, I don't think that's a good landing spot for him. Although I think Cleveland's getting better, but that's just not the place for him.
Right.
And that's probably wise, because he is that kind of a personality. You actually do have some progress being made in Cleveland for once. You probably don't want to ruin that by bringing in Dez Bryant. Johnson?
They brought the circus.
Cowboys?
They brought the circus in when they brought Baker Mayfield in.
Any takes on the Cowboys?
It's a tough division. I think Eagles are going to be there. I mean, it's definitely improved offensively. There'll be some questions about their offensive line still, and Eli, but they improved as well. At Dallas, I feel like they got pieces. I mean, they still got Prescott, they still got Zeke. They don't outside of that. I mean, they really don't have that many weapons on offense. So that would be a concern. They still have the offensive line, but it's another year with that offensive line. So age does come with that. And there's still questions about their defense as well. Sean Lee is good, but can he stay healthy? But they do have pass rushers, so that's always a plus. But they'll always keep him in games. But do they have the weapons for Dak? Is the main question around him besides Zeke. So that's a little bit about that. And then I want to talk about the Dez thing. I think Dez would be a solid fit for us just because he's a veteran, but he also will take a lot of pressure off of Gordon, off the media attention, because it's going to be Dez Bryant. There's going to be a media circus around him. Also take the pressure off, probably a little bit off Baker as well, Baker Mayfield being a rookie. But they got a lot of weapons in Cleveland, and he wouldn't be asked to do a lot of things. You got Josh Gordon if he stays off the suspension list. And then you got Jarvis Landry, who's another guy that gets a lot of attention too. So I think it would be a great fit for someone like the Browns that has a lot of cap room, but I don't think Dez is going to be getting that much money just because there isn't that many opportunities available right now.
The only reason I thought it was a negative, or I guess not a negative, but a bad fit in Cleveland was because of Baker Mayfield, and that's again, it's not so much about the talent and the production, because I do think he's a solid receiver, even if it's not what he used to be. I still think he can give you some production. My thing was with that kind of personality, especially with a rookie quarterback. I mean, you saw how it impacted Dak and sort of the two-step that he had to kind of do in the media, trying to sort of cover for a teammate, but at the same time, dance around the struggles that they had. You don't want that process to repeat with Baker Mayfield. And again, with it being Cleveland, trying to sort of build in the positive direction. I think anything that's contaminant, you probably want to do away with. But, you make a good point. I do see what you're saying. How about the Ravens?
Oh,
what are you expecting from them?
Before we go on, let's hear some predictions on what you think the Cowboys' record will be.
On the record, I thought about this, I've been writing some stuff recently. I did the NFC East on my website not that long ago. I got to be honest, man. I think they're going to finish third in the division, and I think they're going to miss the playoffs. And it's not about them being a bad team, like Johnson said. They have, of any team in the league, they probably have the most foundational pieces in terms of a good offensive line, a decent pass rusher, maybe not necessarily great, but decent. Like you said, you got a solid linebacker. I think the NFC is so deep. I don't see them making it to the playoffs. 8-8, maybe a good 9-7, but again, and like it does a lot of times, I think it's going to come down to that last game of the year. But I think they're going to miss out.
Johnson?
All right, since we're on record, I think I agree. I think they either finish second or third. It depends what you look at the Giants, but I think the Eagles definitely finish first, and I think the Redskins finish last. But it could intertwine. It could be tied between the Giants and Cowboys. But I would say if I had to go a record, I would say they will finish the season. I haven't really looked at the schedule, but I would say 6-10 or 7-9. I would say 7-9.
And I want to. The major thing, my major hang up on them again is Dak. I think if Dak were, a letter grade better, he went from a C to a B. I think the rest of the team is good enough that team is ready to compete. Maybe not necessarily for a Super Bowl this year, but certainly deep in the playoffs. I just don't buy Dak as that guy, that's going to, give them those extra 1 or 2 wins that they just need the quarterback. Like Russell Wilson last year had a lot of those wins where you're like, dude, they should be losing by 40, and yet somehow Seattle managed to pull those out. Their offensive line obviously was terrible. I think if you give Dak or if you give Russell that offensive line, you're going to see some magical things happen. I don't see that with Dak. And so that's my biggest hang up, really.
So they'll go down in wins, even though they'll have Zeke for more games this year. That's interesting points.
Again, it's not the team. It's not Dallas that I'm concerned with. I think Dallas is fine, but I don't think Dak is that good that the rest of their schedule is. I mean, it's a little challenging, and I think I think their team as a whole, minus Dak, I think is good for 6 wins. if you were to put a solid backup in, I think that's what their team is good for. And then you need that quarterback that's going to win you 3 or 4 of those games throughout the year where your team doesn't have it. And I just don't see that in Dak. That's all I'm saying. But, it is what it is. What do you think they're going to do?
I'll say 11-5.
Oh boy.
Best line in the league, best running back in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they had a really good year. Because again, I mean, none of us saw that with Dak early on in his career, for sure. So that would need to be replicated to some degree, but it's hard for me to believe. Again, Dez and Jason Witten certainly weren't, top 5 players, but there was some production there. And Dak has shown, I mean, he struggled in that stretch where Zeke was gone, which is what concerns me, especially in the first 3 games. Like, he had some pretty bad performances. So it's not to condemn him for the rest of his career. It's just one of those wait and see sort of things. And for now, I have to reserve that. But I mean, it's not a big discrepancy. 3 wins, 8 wins. He can make up for that with some great play. I just haven't seen it for long stretches yet. I see more out of Zeke, game management, don't screw it up, which is fine. Like Alex Smith, but in the NFC, it's fine.
The only benefit of their schedule is they do play the AFC South, so they play the Titans and the Texans.
Yeah, the schedule's not terrible.
Yeah, we still play the NFC South too.
NFC South is it's pretty decent. There's a lot of question marks there too as well, but
yeah, I think it could be the best. It could easily be the best division in football, and it could easily be the worst. Like, there's so many unanswered questions. All right, Baltimore Ravens. What you got for us, Johnson?
Definitely be interested to see. I think this is first time in quite a while, maybe even since the Super Bowl. Flacco's been healthy and had weapons at the same time. He's been injured last couple seasons. He's had a good so far training camp, what it looks like, what I've read. But the weapons really is the big part. I think they tried to piecemeal it last year, and they got some guys last year, but it just didn't work out. Macklin injury, Danny Wood injuries. So this year they got rid of those 2 guys. And they added Crabtree, who is hardly ever injured. Not to mention he's been productive about every season. He's been with Oakland and almost every season with the Niners. So he's not really a number 1 receiver, but he's a guy that is reliable. Definitely move the chains guy. Maybe not the guy who's going to burn the secondary, but definitely the intermediate routes and stuff like that will be crucial. But then they did get Burner and John Brown, so he's definitely known for his speed and getting down the field. Maybe not anything else. So they upgraded as far as that. Another year with Collins as running back. Him and a combination of him and Buck Allen, they definitely offset each other with Buck Allen be able to affect the passing attack, which Danny Wood was. But now Buck is going to get more time with Danny gone, and Collins is going to be the guy going into camp. I don't think he has to worry about it over his shoulder either. This guy came from Seattle, barely made the squad, and pretty much every NFL season he's been in, he's been a roster bubble. Now he's certified. Now he's the guy in Baltimore. So it's going to be interesting to see with that how he progresses. He's still young, and they lost in the offensive line. And that's going to be another question with them, sort of like the Giants, is their offensive line going to hold up for their veteran quarterback who might be past their prime? And then they added some tight ends. And the defense is going to be the defense. I mean, they were good last year, despite a few flaws, especially at the end of the season. But they've they had injuries going into the season last year with the secondary, lost maybe 2 or 3 cornerbacks. Now they're all back and healthy. It should be a really good secondary. Along with, you still have the decent linebacker unit. You still got Terrell Suggs coming back, who was productive last year. And the special teams, it's going to be the special teams as far as Justin Tucker. He's the X factor. He's definitely, I believe, the best kicker in the league, and it's crucial to have, especially with extra points extended. So it's going to be interesting to see with them, and because the division is starting to change. The Steelers are good. That's not going to change. But with the Browns regressing, I feel like the Bengals are getting down to the 4th spot closely. They have some good players, but do we trust Andy Dalton to do anything with that?
Nope.
They have some questions as far as outside of AJ Green, like who is going to be the guy, who's going to help him, or who's going to be the guy that assists Andy Dalton. He's getting double coverage. Mixon looked promising, but they had 3 backs. I don't know how their back situation is now, but I'm assuming Mixon's going to be the guy going into that second year. And their defense is getting older. They lost some pieces on the defense, veterans like Pac-Man Jones. Do we know if how that's going to change as far as, because it seems like they're regressing compared to everyone else in the division who have improved or stay at the high level like the Steelers have. So it's definitely going to be an interesting season for the Ravens. It's high hopes like last year, but hopefully the one thing is hopefully we get through a healthy training camp, because if not, then it's going to be the same old. So.
Yeah. Well, the Ravens have been kind of stuck in limbo for a couple of years. Like, they kind of remind me, honestly, and this isn't a slight at all, but just in terms of the results that they've had each year, they kind of remind me of the Titans as a Titans fan over the last 10 to 15 years, where there were plenty of years where they weren't terrible. They might have been average, but average doesn't get you anywhere in the NFL, because no one's going to come to your team in terms of free agency. You're also going to get a medium to low draft pick. So
Yeah.
you're not necessarily making any progress. And that kind of is where they were for a while. It's almost like a Peyton Manning situation, where you kind of saw, once Ray Lewis left, the value of having someone that's an all-time great on your team, because they've kind of regressed. And again, they're not a poor organization, which is why they're sort of a middle-of-the-road team. Much less like the Browns, you see, when they don't obviously have any players, they're also a poor-run organization. So they go years and years and years without winning games. At least you guys don't have to deal with that. So that's cool. I do want to ask, though, obviously as a fan, you guys just got a new quarterback on the roster, so that's still on the table. That's something that's in the back of people's minds. There are people that want Flacco out. There are people that are waiting for the moment to get Flacco out, maybe not necessarily to start the year. And then there's some people that don't want Lamar Jackson at all. Where do you fall on that spectrum, and what do you look for from Lamar Jackson, if anything?
I'm a patient person. I think you got to give Flacco another year. I give Lamar Jackson, he came out of his junior year. So he's still a young quarterback, still needs to be polished. So they got the personnel that can definitely help improve him as far as improve his skills and be an NFL quarterback. You got Marty Mornhinweg, who's offensive coordinator, who's also Michael Vick's offensive coordinator. So he's a guy that knows how to use that type of quarterback, but also know to help them become more of a pocket passer. But I think Lamar is going to be a good player. I don't think he's someone you would throw out the gate. I mean, I think all the quarterbacks they drafted in this class are projects in some way.
I wasn't a big fan for any of them starting personally, but I'm no professional, but just based on what I know and years of watching football and having played and things like that, I don't. Yeah. It's just I don't see it. Like there's times when you see people that play a sport and you're like, yeah, they've got it. Even if it takes some work, you can see that. But like Deshaun Watson, for all the mistakes he made and for all the great plays he made, there's something there that can be useful, and it may not necessarily be great. But it certainly takes some cultivating. And then, like you said, yeah, Flacco. I've never been the biggest fan. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. He's good enough,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I think he has certainly played well enough over his career and done enough for the organization that, like you said, he does at minimum, even if it's just a year, he at least gets or at least deserves a year to kind of see what he can do. And if it works out, that's great. If not, all is well that ends well. But
Yeah.
I think he at least needs a year.
Yeah, I think Flacco, like being healthy for the first time in a long time, definitely deserves this year to prove himself. But he's been not. I mean, I don't think it was ever elite, but I think he was at a point where he was progressing, and after the Super Bowl, he reached his highest progression. I set the tied record with Joe Montana for most touchdowns in a playoff with his 12 touchdowns and no interceptions in the whole playoff campaign when they won the Super Bowl. But I think being healthy, I think having the weapons, I mean, there's really no excuse anymore for him for this year.
Jared, any take on the Ravens? What do you think you're going to see this year?
The Ravens. Well, I'm going to start off by saying they're not even starting their best quarterback on the team this year.
Really?
But I think the Ravens will go 6-10. I mean, they did get some nice additions on offense, but really, tell me somebody on offense that's going to be a number one on most other teams.
Number one receiver?
Just any position.
Marshall Yanda. I would say there's one. The probably one of the best guards in the league right now.
Special running backs for tight ends. Any.
I don't think you have guys that would be a one. For any team, maybe there's some guys that would probably be one just because of bad teams being. But I think the collection of guys makes it middle of the pack as far as, if not better, as far as skill players. I mean, Collins was probably, I think he had the highest yards per carry last year among NFL running backs, or at least top 5. And then you got Crabtree, who just came along. He was a guy not far off from, I think, 90, 80 reception seasons. So you got guys that are definitely – you got Crabtree is reliable. You got John Brown, who's especially is just get it downfield and open up the defense. But you got Collins, who is going to be the guy who's going to be able to be the focal point as far as running the ball, and that's what they want to do is run the ball. But the tight end situations, we were lacking in the tight end situations. Ben Watson was good, but he was old, and we didn't have anything other than Ben Watson at the time last year. So we drafted some tight ends, and I think Hayden Hurst out of South Carolina is going to be – he's an older guy. I think he's like 26 years old. So he's going to be a guy that's he's going to have the body to play right away. So he's like 6'6", I believe. So he's a big target to have, especially for the red zone, which we were very much lacking. So I don't think offensively you're going to have guys that are just going to stand out. But I do think you have a collection of talent where they fit. Everyone has a special role. And it's not like the defense is going to settle on one guy. We can spread them out a little bit more. So I think that's what is going to carry us as well. But I think we're a really solid running team with a healthy O-line, and Yanda was out for most of the season last year, best offensive lineman. So he's ready to go.
Well, I think the defense is solid like always, just as the Bengals defense is, and it's a tougher division now that the Browns are starting to get some pieces going forward. But like I said, I mean, on offense, nobody excites me. Yeah, you have some talent there, but to me, it's average talent. It's not above average talent. There's not guys that are going to make you go, wow. It's been, I don't even know, when was the last time the Ravens had a tight end start the season healthy and end the season healthy. And when it comes down to Flacco, I mean, that's the most important position in the NFL. And, other than a couple years ago when he was injured and didn't play a whole season, last year he had his lowest amount of yards since his rookie year. I think his QBR was the lowest since his rookie year. I just don't know how that's going to fare going forward, especially with the Bengals and the Steelers as tough as they are.
I want to revisit something really quick before we go on to my Titans and before we do predictions, because I'm trying to wrap my head around. So you actually want Lamar Jackson to start over Joe Flacco, like to start the season? Do you think that would be better for the Ravens?
No, but he's a better quarterback in my opinion.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. I agree with that statement. I thought you were saying you wanted him to start.
No.
I do think going forward he would be the better quarterback. Yes, obviously most of that is due to age, and we obviously don't know based on his talent and potential. But based on what we saw in college, and obviously what we would expect, sure he would be the better player. But I didn't hear you say it that way. That's why I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
All right, so predictions, Johnson. We'll start with you.
Well, Jared said 6-10. I think it's going to be a little bit better than that. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go with 10-6. I think they're going to be second. They're going to get a wild card spot, maybe the second wild card spot for the AFC. I think the Steelers finished in first. I think the Browns. They do have pieces, but I think they're so young, and I think they just got
they're ready yet. I think they're going to win. I do have the Browns winning 6+ games. I do think they're going to shock a lot of people at how good they are. I do think a lot of people think they're going to be better. I don't think anyone is ready for how good they are going to be, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think they have some real players. I think they've had some players for a couple of years. I think they really have needed a quarterback to put it all together. Granted, the organization isn't run the best. But it reminds me again of Tennessee so much, because Tennessee for years was a disaster, and Marcus Mariota is no Hall of Famer. He's no great quarterback, but he's competent and he's talented, and that's all you need sometimes to get started. And I think they got that even with Tyrod Taylor, let alone Baker Mayfield. Even if it's not someone that's going to win them a Super Bowl or win them a bunch of playoff games, I think they're both competent enough to get them, to get the wheels turning in the right direction.
Yeah, I think if Tyrod, I think what's going to happen is Tyrod's going to start, and Baker's going to just sit. I think Baker is going to come in probably the last 3-4 games this season, because I don't think Baker's ready. Like I said,
I think they're going to give him 6 personally,
but I just don't see the Browns winning more than 4 games, just because you're coming off a team that didn't win any games. So
no, you're right. You're right.
It's not like it's going to be all of a sudden they drafted guys, they signed some guys that they're going from they're going to be +6 or +7 wins because of the guys they signed. It takes time.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I wouldn't disagree with that stance. I will, however, tell you my reason for believing that is because, first of all, their schedule is, for all intents and purposes, favorable. If you were to put any other team in this schedule, you look at it. In other words, if you were to put any other team in the Browns schedule, I think you would say that was a fairly decent schedule.
What?
Yeah.
They got to in Carolina, and they're playing the AFC West.
Well, and again, this is from my perspective. I'm not as big a buyer in some of these teams as you guys are, or might be. But that's just me. Anyway, point being, I think they're going to be better than people think. They've had some talent on that team for a while, and they've got some talent on that team now. And yeah, it does take a while to go from the gutter to the top, but I think they're going to take a little bit bigger step than people think.
It'll be hard pressed to find them winning more than 2 games in their division, or division because I maybe think they steal one maybe versus the Bengals or something like that.
No, I think they're gonna sweep the Bengals.
Don't see it.
Dude, the Bengals are not good, man.
They
The
got
Bengals aren't good,
Barkley,
but the Browns aren't
deeper in the
worse. And
Hey, we'll see.
they got the AFC West. I mean, Kansas City and the Chargers. I think those are 2 losses.
That I'll buy.
Oakland will be a lot.
Oakland is a possible loss. I mean, they got the talent around them. It's a matter of what Gruden does. The West, they got at Saints. That's a loss. I think they lose to the Falcons.
Got to go to Houston.
Yeah, they got to go to Houston. That's another loss. Like, I see them winning the Jets, possible Jets. The Bucks possibly, but that's on the road. Maybe Denver on the road,
Yeah.
and then taking a game versus the Bengals. That was hard to find 4 games right there.
Again, I'm not saying this. This is more of a optimistic. I'm trying to be optimistic about the Browns here. Okay, work with me a little bit here.
Shot.
Well,
You know,
You're
they're
been
doing
drinking
good
what I'm
things.
drinking.
They're doing good things. You know, I'm just saying. I think they have 6 games on their schedule that are winnable. I'm not saying that they're going to go 6-10, but I think they have 6 games on their schedule that are winnable, and I think they're going to get to at least 6 wins.
Yeah, it's going to be. And then the only thing benefit they do have a late bye, so. And
Hey, it's
after
going to
the
be
bye,
tough
it's 2 road
sledding,
games.
but it's going to be tough sledding, no question. But there are as many question marks about some of these teams on their schedule as there are about any other team. So
Forget
There
the
is.
best offensive lineman just retired.
no, and that is a huge loss. You're right. That was a huge loss. So again, we'll see. I think they have 6 games that they could pull out of a win. That's all.
All right, write it
What's
down.
Ravens prediction?
Yeah, what's your Ravens prediction?
I, like you, have the Ravens second and grabbing a wild card spot. I don't have them at 10-6 though. I do have them at 9-7. I don't think. I think theirs is again a lot like the Cowboys, and a lot like theirs does a lot of times. It's going to come down to those last games against the Browns, based on the rest of the league, obviously. But I think they're going to get in on the last week.
I think he started out the season 3 now, and then going to Pittsburgh for first place.
Well, I do think though they will be in control of their destiny. In other words, they won't need anyone else to lose in order for them to get in. I think they'll be good enough for that to be the case, but I do think they get in on the last week. It'll be a win and get in sort of deal.
Yeah.
Like last year? Oh, that hurts.
I forgot that already. Don't remind me. It's a new season. They play the Browns the last game of the season. There's no way.
Yeah.
I almost dropped
That's
the
the-
F-bomb.
Boy, listen. Well, I can tell you this much: if that's like, even if that's like the Browns say 4th win of the year, right? If that is the situation where it's like the Browns beat the Ravens and Ravens don't get to go to the playoffs, like that'd be like them getting to the playoffs.
It's
That'd
at
be
home
good enough for
too.
them.
So yeah, I don't think that's ever going to be possible. The Browns beat us at home but crazier things that happen.
Yep. All right. So, moment of truth for me, the Titans.
Oh,
Let me bring up that schedule real quick.
16-0.
Wow.
They actually have a pretty brutal schedule. I don't know. Maybe brutal is not the word, but
It's not
it's
that bad.
rough. It's got some rough spots. I think they could start off well.
after your bye,
Um,
that's going to hurt.
yeah, I think they start off well. They swept the Jags last year, so I'm not really concerned with the Jaguars. And Blake Bortles is still their quarterback, so that's that.
I don't know. It's another year before that.
The Dolphins are a mess. I don't even know. Do they even have a quarterback?
Yeah,
Still got Tannehill.
Tannehill.
Does he have a knee still?
Yeah.
It's got the same one Mariota.
Okay.
I was never a buyer in Tannehill.
Nah, well, they got
I think he's decent. He's like Andy
Right.
Dalton on another team.
Okay, so what's different from the Titans this year than last year?
So here's the thing with the Titans. First of all, I have big concerns. I have like
Henry?
2010, 2012 level concerns where it's like, dude, we're about to go 2-12 or 2-14. I mean, like,
You trust Henry being the guy?
so
No?
I trust everyone on the team except Mariota. I don't trust him.
Wow.
And maybe trust is not the right word. I am not a buyer yet. Here's how it goes. Mariota made some big steps from his rookie year to his sophomore year. He made some big steps throughout his rookie year, and he made some big throws. Last year they went not this previous year, but the year before, his second year they went 9-7. He made some pretty big plays, and he was hurt the first year and second year. So I had some concerns about him injury-wise. He seems to have put on some weight, which is good, because I thought he was a little thin. I think Deshaun Watson needs to do the same thing. I think they had a similar build. But anyway, he made some phenomenal throws last year. Like some where I'm like, dude, that's like top level stuff. And then he made some throws last year where I'm like, I don't know. He must have been drinking or smoking something before the game. Because there's some, and again, some of that goes to mistakes on the offense. Like there's the pick he threw against Kansas City was totally not his fault. It was 100% on the receiver. He was supposed to run a clear out. He didn't clear out. And, it's a timing thing. He throws the ball, and Peters was sitting on it because he never got cleared. That's not his fault. So that happens with quarterbacks. But he made some throws where I was concerned. And so, and this is a big year coming up because we're getting ready to talk contracts. And, you have to make some decisions if you're Tennessee. You're relevant again. You're playing well. So you're not terrible. I'm not calling him a terrible quarterback by any means. I love him, to be honest. He's turned the franchise around. So I truly do love him. I have concerns if you're talking about them taking the next step because they won a playoff game on the road, which is a big deal. A lot of people let that one slip under the radar, but they've gone into Kansas City the last 2 years on the road and won late in the year. And this one was in the playoffs. So I think they have – listen, they have – if you talk about names, you can go down that roster. They have some big names on that roster, and they should be pretty good. The offense was bland last year because Terry Robisky is – and thank God he's gone. I will say I think if any year Mariota was going to pop, this would be the year because he's got Matt LaFleur as his OC now, who was with obviously Jared Goff and the Rams last year. So I'm super pumped about that. To see what he can do with Mariota. He's got a little bit different game than Goff. Obviously, he brings the running element. And he's a dynamic runner. He can hit his head on the goalpost in a heartbeat. So I'm pumped about that. But, again, I have some concerns, man. I do. I will say I'm happy with him as a quarterback. And I'll take him for 10 years if I had to because they're hard to come by, even a decent one. And, obviously we had the situation where we were struggling. So in that regard, I love him, but I have my concerns for sure. I will say that is my only concern. I think if he were to play at anywhere above average, I think they have a real shot to make some noise, but he's got to step it up for sure because they have some talent on that team. They got receivers. They got one of the best tight ends in the game. Derrick Henry, as far as where he ranks, I don't know because we're just starting to see him. But I think he could. Obviously, he has the build and the game to be special. But we'll see. Rashard Matthews is solid. Corey Davis shows some flashes. We'll see what he brings this year. They got some speed at wideout. I don't know necessarily about the route running for some of them. But the secondary is solid. They brought in Malcolm Butler. Adoree Jackson showed some real promise last year. And then Logan Ryan, he's a little spotty, but he's solid. And then obviously Bayard was super last year. Derek Morgan, usually at the top of the league, somewhere in sacks. Arakpo, they just got Evans that they drafted. drafted Harold Landry, so they got a lot of pieces to work with. It's Mariota is the question, and it's a big one.
Well,
Predictions?
I'm gonna start off by saying that I think it's extremely possible that Marcus Mariota is the worst starting quarterback in that division.
I would agree.
And that doesn't-
I will counter though, but I will counter before you go on. Sorry, I will counter based on the division and the injuries that some of these quarterbacks are coming off of, and Blake Bortles, because Blake Bortles can be easily one of the worst quarterbacks in the league at times.
He's still one of the worst.
No, I know. But based on how that stuff falls, he could also be the best quarterback in that division because he made it through the season healthy, and we didn't see that with two of the quarterbacks. And then, obviously, like I said, Blake Bortles could be in and out. And so my point is that division is so – again, it could be easily the best division in football. If you look at all the teams top to bottom, you insert a quarterback on all of those teams, and you got something to work with. But then all of those teams at quarterback between injuries and poor play have question marks. So, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, my prediction, I'm gonna say that the Titans finished 9-7 and lose to the Colts on the last week of the season for a wild card spot. I don't know, like you said, with all the injuries to every quarterback. I mean, this could go either way with any team in this division, but still suspect on the receivers. You look at them, there's talent, but just kind of nobody that really I look at and say they're really, really good. Not sure if Henry's going to be able to handle the load by himself. And then defensively, you got some pieces, but that's a tough division, especially defensively. Going up against, Watson coming back healthy, what he did in the short amount of time he was there, and Luck coming back, it's going to be a tough division.
Let me ask you a question on the defenses. If you just, and again, this could be a topic for another day. Matter of fact, I'll make a note of that because it's actually a really good question. But looking at that division, at all the defenses in that division, do you think that this division has the best defenses top to bottom in the league?
Top to bottom in the league, I would say no.
Just off the top of your head. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but just off the top of your head.
I think it's up there, but you look at the NFC South and West, and then even the AFC North. Those are some really, really solid defenses.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
But this is the division that, really going into it with Luck coming back, hopefully healthy, that I think any team could win this division this year. There's not any team that's kind of overwhelming a favorite over anybody. I think especially if Luck comes back healthy, his first 3 years in the league, they went 11-5, I think, every year and made the playoffs. And even that last year before he got hurt, he still had a pretty good season. So I don't know. I think the Colts will beat them in the last week of the season to knock them out of the playoffs.
Johnson.
All right, so I think Titans start off the season 1-6.
Jeez.
And that's not good. That's what I was saying. I wasn't even talking about the Cowboys after their bye week, but they do go to Dallas, have New England at home, and then have to go to Indy and Houston on back-to-back.
Yeah, I think they start they win the first game and lose 8 straight.
Oof.
But I believe the second half it turns around. I think they end up getting 6 wins.
Turns around, man. That season is over.
Well, it's better. It's 1-6 to what 5-4. So that's
so you got them. So all right. So you got them starting 1-6. So
Yes,
who do you
before
have
the
them
bye.
beating?
Well, the first game would be Miami. The second, and then I think they beat the Colts. They beat the Colts. They beat the Jets. I think they beat the
So you got
Redskins and then the Colts again.
so you got them losing to the Ravens, Bills, Jags, Texans.
I think the Bills would be a close game. That's definitely a winnable game just because quarterback situation. But they go at Buffalo, so I'm giving Buffalo a little favorite there. But Chargers, I think they lose. I think they lose the Ravens, Eagles, Jags, Texans, and then in the back end they lose to the Patriots.
Now sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
You do realize they swept the Jags last year.
I do.
They
It's
really-
last year though.
No, that's a fair point.
I think Jags are going to get their redemption. I mean, I think the Jags finish. No, I don't think the Jags win the division. I think the Texans win it. I think
the Jags window has come and gone.
I think
they're about to go right back to
Nope.
the Jags of old.
No,
That defense.
their defense is stacked, and
It
I
is,
think-
man, but
Fournette
I
is going
don't-
to with Fournette back there. I mean, they could just play like Ravens, what they used to do, just run the ball and play great defense. That's all they got to do. But I don't think.
yeah,
they win
but the
division.
one thing that the Ravens had that the Jags don't have is a competent quarterback. Say what you want about Blake Bortles. He made some mistakes in that playoff. Again, this is from my perspective.
Yeah.
Blake Bortles, I understand the comparisons as far as Mariota. I totally get it. And I'm not, again, I'll be the first to tell you, Mariota's not a great quarterback. He's decent. He's solid. He's not great. But Blake Bortles, I mean, dude, he's got issues, man. But anyway, go ahead.
I just think Bortles is not. I don't like Bortles, but I do think he's another year. I think it's going to be him. They know, like, he's got to know his role by now. Like, just don't turn the ball over. Get the ball to Fournette.
Yeah.
So that defense, especially, you can't turn the ball over because that defense is going to get is going to hold their opponent's offense accountable. They're not going to be scoring on that defense. So I think that's what sets the Texans apart. I think from the Jaguars is the quarterback situation. I think Deshaun Watson another year. I think he's going to play a full year, and I think he's going to be dominant. I think the Texans have a great opportunity. I think to maybe even be the number 2 seed in the conference, just because I think that division. I just don't trust the Colts. I know Luck is coming back. Luck is a great quarterback, but that defense is hideous. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, it is.
And what do they have really around Luck besides Hilton? So it's like, I think they need to build more pieces around Luck. I think they see Luck and he's going to be healthy. Then the next year after that, it's like, let's get some free agents here. Let's get some solid people around him on that offense. And I think that'll be great. And that offensive line was never great, but it's gotten better. They drafted a high, they had a high pick for offensive lineman out of Notre Dame. So I think they're going to be decent, but I think they're going to finish last in the division. I think the Titans are going to be in third place. And I think it's just going to be just a two-team race the whole year between the Jaguars and Texans. But I think Texans outlast them. So that's how I feel. I think the Titans, they have the defense. That division has really stacked up defenses besides the Colts. I think it's going to be more of a concern with the offense because I think the defense is way better than what the offense is right now. And I think we're going to see that throughout the year. The offense is not going to be able to put enough points. I think they'll be in games. Titans will be in a lot of games just because of the defense, but I just don't see them finishing out.
Well, let's not forget, he has underachieved in his career so far, but the Colts did sign Eric Ebron.
Well, I will say
Ebron.
this.
I like Ebron.
Of all the teams in that division, there are obviously a lot of questions. I have the least faith in the Colts.
Drafted Deion Kane, too.
Getting hit in your face and your size and ribs is not good for your career. And Andrew Luck, I think he's a great talent. I do. I hate him just like I hated Peyton Manning because he plays in the division, so it's the way it is. But he's obviously a good talent. But at a certain point, man, your body can't take it. And he's been beat up. Like, he's had some serious injuries. And this one was no joke. And it's been a long time since he's played. And, I mean, you know how it is just as an average guy. Like, that stuff goes quick, man. I'm not saying he's going to be a failure, but I'm not – there's no way I'm picking them to win the division. Like, there's
I
no
think
way.
their offensive line takes a big jump this year because Ryan.
Yeah, I certainly think they got better, and with him playing great, I think they will then jump into a playoff team. But I need to and this is part of the reason why I picked the Titans to win the division. And this is only for the preseason. Like, this is not, sort of etched in stone or anything. This is more of how I feel at the moment. But based on what I know in terms of information about the quarterbacks and the teams and the rosters, I haven't seen Deshaun Watson play but a handful of games. I can't necessarily declare him as, the best quarterback in the division. If he plays like he was playing, absolutely. But I need to see that for 6 to 8 weeks, and especially on top of the injury, him being a rookie quarterback. We've seen this thing happen before, and I just, I'm not ready to leap on that boat yet. And the same thing with Andrew Luck. Again, getting hit in your face is not good for your career. And being out for a year and a half, and just now being able to throw regulation footballs, like that concerns me. If he gets back to where he was, he's certainly the best quarterback in the division. If you just look at them on paper, but I got some big question marks.
To me, they're pretty much alluding that Jacksonville's going to win the division because Mariota's hurt every year. Not major, but he has minor nicks and bruises all the time.
No, you're right. And last year he was nicked. He had the hamstring issue. And a lot of people think that the reason that they're going to be a sneaky good team is because they think that there's reports that hamstring injury didn't get out in the media as much. And obviously part of that is because they're the Titans. Like, no one, even last year, no one talked about them. And so there was concern last year that he was unhealthy for a large portion of the year, which is part of the reason why he didn't run. He did miss a game, which somehow Matt Castle couldn't lead them to a win against the Dolphins. Dude, I'm not exaggerating. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, look up the Titans-Dolphins highlights from this year. It's like a 7-8 minute long clip. It is some of the grossest football I think I've ever seen in my life, dude. It's so bad. But here's the thing. And this is why I have more faith in them than you guys probably do. When I go back to last year, there was a point in the year where they were, I believe, 8-5, and it was the night they were playing, or not 8-5, maybe 7-5, and it was the Thursday night game against the Steelers. Their whole season hinged on that night, because if they beat the Steelers that night, and the rest of their season plays out the way it did in terms of wins, they go into the playoffs 10-6. And instead of going on the road to Kansas City, you get to play at home. Who knows who you're playing against at that point? But at that point in the season, if they had beaten the Steelers, they go to the second seed in the AFC. And now all of a sudden, you're looked at a little bit differently as the second seed. Instead, they slide to almost out of the playoffs. They had to win on the last game of the year. And so I think they're a little bit better than people give them credit for. Again, I do think it largely hinges on Mariota. And I think this is going to be huge because, again, you're getting ready to start talking contracts. And when you're talking franchise quarterbacks and talent and production and things of that nature, you're talking about a lot of money that you want to give a guy that at this point has done virtually nothing. So we'll see. We shall see. As far as the record, I do have them winning the division as of now. I looked at this schedule totally different from you guys. I certainly think they beat the Dolphins. I do think they split with the Texans. I don't know. They probably wouldn't have won at home. I don't think they lose a game to the Jags at all. The one team that they haven't had a problem with consistently anyway, sure, they get the occasional game just because it's in the division. But the Jags have certainly not been an issue. Even last year, the first game was certainly a no contest. The second one was a little bit tougher, but I don't buy the Jags at all. The Eagles, I certainly don't think they're going to win that game. I don't think they're going to lose to the Bills. The Ravens is up in the air, but I think they could win that one. Chargers and Cowboys probably lose both of those. Patriots as well. I think they beat the Colts as well 2 times. I think they beat the Jets, and then again they beat the Texans and Jags. Giants. I'm a lot higher on the Giants than I probably should be, but so I think they're going to lose that game. I think they beat the Skins, and I think they beat the Colts. I mean, listen, a lot of I will tell you the biggest portion of my belief in them is the removal of Mike Mularkey and the removal of Terry Robisky, because for as good as that team was at points last year, that was, again, I'm not kidding. Watch the Miami Dolphin game if you want to get a glimpse of how piss poor that offense looked at times. Like, it's disgusting. It looks elementary. And Matt LaFleur did some, I think he was with Atlanta with Matt Ryan. I'm not sure where he was before he was with Jared Goff and the Rams. But they did some great things on offense, and obviously him working with Sean McVay. So, again, from that perspective, him getting a more dynamic quarterback, I'm excited to see what he can do. So I'm holding out hope in that regard. But I don't know. We'll see.
It's gonna be interesting.
All right. What's that?
It'll be interesting. Colts are
Yes, it will. I'm pumped. I'm getting to go to my first game. I've never been to a professional game, so I'm getting to go to a ton of games this year. I want to try to go to at least like 10 or 12.
Must not be going to see the Titans. Then you said professional.
That's cold. No, I'm going to try to get to obviously, you want to get to a Titans game. I want to get to a Giants game. I want to get to a Patriots game, probably a Steelers game, a couple other teams. We'll see, but I'm super pumped about this year. Again, I got a lot more higher hopes than you guys do for my Titans, but that tends to be the case, obviously, with everyone. Again, I picked the Cowboys to miss the playoffs, so it is what it is. I do have one question for everyone. One sleeper team to make the playoffs that did not make the playoffs last year. And if you need I don't know if you need like a list if you have it on the top of your head, but I had this
playoffs year.
One team that did not make the playoffs last year that will make the playoffs this year.
I mean, that's pretty. I mean, I already got mine, but that's pretty simple because I already said it.
No, I know. I'm saying, give me someone else.
All right. Besides the Texans, I'm gonna go. All right. I'm gonna go with Giants. I'm gonna go with Giants outside of Texans.
What record?
What record? I think it's like 8-8, something like that. 9-7.
Yeah, as much as it's gonna kill me to say it, and they've been breaking hearts for a lot of years, especially recently. I'm gonna say the San Diego Chargers.
Oh my God! Come on, man. That's the worst curse of all.
I know, but I think they finally figured it out.
That's like
enough to make.
That's like saying the Steelers are going to beat the Patriots this year.
Well, the AFC is pretty wild. I mean, you got the Pats at the top, but other than that, it seems to be alternating every year. I mean, the Steelers get in, but they're not always the 2 or 3.
I feel like no matter what I say about the Chargers, it is always the opposite. If I pick them to be good, they're terrible. If I pick them to be terrible, they're good.
Well, I don't like the Chargers, so maybe they'll not play very well.
Yeah, I don't like the Chargers either because if we are ever in a wild card race, they always seem to be the team that eliminates us somehow, even if they don't play us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Chargers. I got a surprise for you. Team that hasn't been mentioned not once, I don't think, and that is the Redskins.
That's who I was going to say.
Stop.
See it. I could see it.
Stop.
I can see it if I squint hard enough. I can see it,
Stop.
and you got to squint really hard, but it's there.
Nah.
Look, man, a lot of teams had a lot of injuries last year, but they got decimated by injuries. And, you know, I'm not a buyer of Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith. I'd rather, if I had to pick between the two, I think I'd probably take Kirk Cousins just because I don't like Alex Smith. He's so plain and boring, but I think he's good enough to get them enough wins to get them into the playoffs. And I think that roster as a whole, listen, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're probably not even going to win their first playoff game. But I think he's good enough and that roster is good enough to at least get them there. I think they're a competent enough team to do that.
I agree with you. That was who I was going to say if I didn't say the Chargers.
A part of me wants to pick the Jets, but I just don't. I don't think they're ready yet.
Sounds like it's getting past your bedtime. You picking the Jets.
Right.
You can't pick the Jets to do anything, but I like Darnold, so. All right. You guys got any other topics you want to throw out there real quick?
I don't think so.
Word. All right.